budget for the next fiscal year goes back into line with the previous year, and we're actually, I think it's 1K less than it was at that time. Pretty much everything is, for the most part, the same. I think we did add wages for the deputy registrars to assist us with some clerical activities, which are a little bit of voluminous and reviewing a lot of the voter records that we're required to do annually, part of the canvass. So otherwise, everything is pretty much in check, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have. Pretty much, like I said, the maintenance fees and the dues are identical. They haven't really told us about any major increases. I think the biggest thing, the ballots have gone up a little bit, but otherwise, that's about it. We budgeted for 4 types of elections over the next fiscal year, and we could have the savings of the $1,800 for the Republican town. Well, I have Republican town committee. It's actually a town committee election. 9 times out of 10, if we have one, it usually is the Republican town committee. But if there's no disagreements,
you haven't had one for probably 3 or 4 years now, and so I think
that's correct. That's correct.
I'm not sure you need that $1,800.
And are we safe to assume that there will be a budget referendum this year, or is there any guidance from the governor as to doing what he did last year and waiting that?
Mike, are you there?
I don't know that yet. I've asked Carl for his opinion on whether or not we can go with a public election, which we would prefer to do. And considering that during COVID we actually had primaries, there's a pretty good chance that we would be able to go ahead and have a vote.
Oh, this would be May of 22 anyway, wouldn't it, this budget?
Yeah, this would be for the following budget referendum.
Yeah.
When we're doing this all over again next year.
Yep, good point.
Correct.
It'd be helpful for me, and I'm not going to speak for others, it'd be helpful for me if we had years in there, because sometimes they get lost, May budget referendum, if it said May 22 budget referendum, that would help.
Okay. Roger that. Yes. So we're looking forward to that period of time. So September of the following year, September of 21. So yes, the only reason why we had the town committee in there was because for the 2 that they happen on alternate years, and we ended up being in the hole that one year when we were caught off guard when we had a town committee, and then again 2 years later it happened again. So that was the only reason for that. So it's up to you. If you'd like to drop that, that's certainly fine. Otherwise, like I said, everything is pretty much the same.
Tim, correct me if I'm wrong, there should be a Democrat or Republican town committee election in March of 22, right? Those would happen this year for the fall election, wouldn't they?
Right, but those are just done. Those are done within the committee, and then
so it would be.
There's no town-wide referendum unless
it actually happens. So the town committee elections occur on even years in the spring. So, and what happens is if the existing town committee is challenged by other people of the same party, then they'll force a town committee election, and that's where we run into that. And it tends to be problematic in the sense that we have to have a ballot that has roughly 75 people on it. So it gets a little bit intense, I guess you could say. But yes, it does occur every even years in the spring.
Okay.
I'd like to compliment you, David, on the way you addressed the voters' registration in terms of cleaning that out. We had a pretty clean election, thanks to your efforts.
Thank you. Yes, I think it was across all boards, all departments really in the town. We worked together with Public Works and with the police department and the town clerk's office, etc. Working together made everything work perfectly. We got a lot of the public was very pleased with the way the election
Right.
went. So it was
Absolutely.
good.
Well done.
It was very well done.
Thank you, David. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
And so that brings us to the
Police.
man and woman of the hour.
The man of the hour.
Must be you, bud.
The first selectman's budget. All right, I'm going to
Yeah,
put that up.
Mike Evie, man of the hour.
Oh, I'm sorry.
What's that?
Is it Mike
No,
Evie?
Mike Evie's the man of the hour.
Okay,
not you.
I will turn this around to Kim Liddick.
Hello.
Hi, Kim.
Hey, guys.
Which one are we working for, Brian? I got like 4 of them from you.
So I'm not sure which one we're working from either, so I was waiting for Kim to give me that
And
direction.
I apologize. I'm not the best mathematician. So my budget obviously has increased from last year's. And the main reasons, we're working on the one,
Are you going with the 9 or 8, Kim?
the 837.
No, the 8 officer or 9 officer? Which one am I sharing?
I'm going for 9, man.
Okay. Go big
I
or
have
go
the
home,
8.
right?
I do have the 8 numbers though.
Just don't
Yeah.
put our
Yeah, no,
papers
I've
in
got
that.
the numbers too. I just
Okay. I'm gonna go by the 9.
so I can put it on their screen for them.
Yep.
9 first.
Yes, I'll do the 9 first, and we can always.
Okay.
I'm sure there'll be plenty of questions, and hopefully I can
Yeah.
answer them for you. So the police budget, we're technically fully staffed. This is definitely an increase that I'm asking for. We have been recently hired 2 new officers, a full-time and a part-time. So overall, fully staffed, where we have 2 officers almost on every shift and our 2 SROs. The increases, besides the salary, vehicle maintenance is probably besides the personnel request, the vehicle maintenance line item definitely went up. We now have 3 cars that are out of warranty. The 2011, 2 2014 vehicles we have. The 2015, 2016, and 2019 are still under warranty. The last 2 years we've spent $7,000. I believe that's the only line item we've been out of with, I guess we can't really help when vehicles start to break down. There's also a lot of idle time on them. The dealerships basically say they estimate once they're out of warranty that they will annually cost $1,500 to $2,000 for repairs. Things like tires, when those go, you can't just replace one, unfortunately, with these all-wheel vehicles. We usually do 2. Most of our maintenance still goes, we have Andy now. He's been wonderful. We've been using him a lot the past couple weeks with a lot of problems going on. But that's definitely the biggest increase for equipment, I'd say. The largest increase is for request to increase or just start a midnight shift. I know the town had one years ago. It seemed like the numbers weren't needed at the time. I think that has changed. I brought with me our calls for service for summers, and this is double-sided calls that the state police and the town police did for last year. We had 9,426 calls for service in this town. 769 of them were on the midnight shift. So I'm not sure percentage-wise what that equals out to. So that's why I'm proposing to start a part-time midnight shift officer. It would be 3 days a week. And those numbers are figured into the shift diff line item, the uniform maintenance line item. What else am I missing, Brian? Anything?
Do we need another vehicle, Kim?
No, we wouldn't need another vehicle. Nope, absolutely not.
And the midnight shift is currently covered with Troop C
Correct.
troopers, which
So-
cover 7 or 8 towns.
Yeah, so Troop C right now covers, and I can't get into numbers, unfortunately, of how many people are on patrol for Troop C, but When they have a minimum number for during the week and during the weekends, and they cover 8 towns.
Pretty far away, too, isn't it?
Correct. So you could have somebody that needs a call in Summers and
25 minutes at least.
Yeah, you could have a serious injury accident up on Interstate 84 in Ashford, and another trooper is down at the Eastbrook Mall in Mansfield, and you're looking for someone to go to Summers. So you could be a good distance away. If they needed somebody in Summers, obviously they prioritize depending on the call. It may take longer if it's a call where it's needed quicker. I mean, we have used local PDs called Enfield or Vernon, but they have their own towns to worry about, and we could break the troopers free if we had an emergency call in town. But definitely the response time is a big thing.
Yeah, I don't think anybody can argue that the numbers are getting more troubling just for economic or socioeconomic issues in town.
Yes,
So,
and that was another thing. So our revenue also, I know that's usually not part of a budget, but I just want to bring up some numbers that I went over with Brian. Our revenue has increased, with what has been going on. I do the pistol permits for the town and the temporary pistol permits. Last year, annual year, I'm sorry, I don't have the numbers for the fiscal year, but the way that it's set up, we do them annually. Last year we had 40 applicants apply for pistol permits in Summers. 2 years ago. Last year we had 130. So the numbers are skyrocketing. The last time we had that is 2016. It seems to do it every 4 years if you follow the numbers around election times. And they're still increasing right now. So our pistol permit revenue for FY 19-20 was $8,050. Current for this fiscal year, we're already at $3,360, and that's just the $70 permit fee that goes to the town of Summers that we get. The extra duty assignments that the officers work, fiscal year 19-20, we brought in $79,424. Current fiscal year, right now we're at $33,942. So we do have revenue that comes from the police department that could offset, I don't know how you figure your finances, but the cost of a midnight shift part-time to see if it's something the town would like.
Is that midnight shift person available for outside of town of Summers if there's a need?
I mean, obviously, if somebody from Ellington was, screaming for backup, it would be something like that. But for normal calls for service, they wouldn't normally send a town officer for something like that. It's
So
not
you
like a
wouldn't
trooper.
you wouldn't get reimbursed for that, would you?
If they went on another call?
Yeah, outside of the district.
Yeah, that just doesn't happen unless it's really somebody, some extraordinary situation. They don't get called to other towns for stuff like that.
Mutual aid.
Yeah, for the mutual aid.
Kim, the only question I have, I know was a couple of years ago that there was an opportunity to acquire another cruiser, and it was kind of outside the normal scope. I think you said the oldest car you have is a 2014.
No, currently we have a 2011 Crown Victoria, 2 2014s, a 15, a 16, and a 19.
Yeah, so, I mean, should we just be planning, this has to carry us through June of 2022, should we just be planning that might be something that has to be considered?
A vehicle, you mean?
Yeah.
That would is a CIP item.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point. Okay. So,
Why does the vehicle need to idle when it's at rest? I mean,
So all the equipment now that is in the cars, it'll kill the battery if we don't leave it running. And also when you get sent a call for service, it goes to the laptop that is in the cruisers right now, the CF31 computers that are in there. That's how they get dispatched and type in a lot of the information on calls. If they shut down the cars, those shut down. And then sometimes for the restart, you don't want to be waiting 2, 3, 4 minutes to say, where am I going?
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Sure.
but from my perspective, I wouldn't have any problem putting this budget through as is with the 9th person while we take a look at what everything is, but I it's certainly not an extension of an overextension of what I think we should provide to the community.
Well, at some point we talked about that, and obviously we're concerned about the expenses, and I had asked him specifically how many miles on that cruiser, and it's getting old. Okay.
No, I'm talking about the ninth person.
Yeah. Oh, the ninth person.
Yeah, the
yes.
vehicle's a CIP item.
I apologize. So yeah, I mean, it's an issue. We can't really specifically tell you how many Troop C officers from the state are on patrol, but I mean, as these incidents increase, we could find ourselves with an emergency here, an emergency in 2 or 3 other towns, and I think we could be in trouble.
Yeah.
So
well, I
I
think
think
between the numbers that Kim mentioned and the ones we've heard from John on ALS and emergency calls from fire, public safety is something we need to address. So.
Yeah, I agree, and I'm a full proponent of that. Another issue coming down the road, of course, is the state mandate that our patrol officers have cameras. That could be anywhere from $80,000 to $85,000 just for the equipment. Of course, the concern is the timing and also the cost to store this data. I don't know if it's going to be stored by the state or stored by us, and I don't know how long it's going to be required, 6 months, 2 years, 3 years, I don't know. So at some point, what's the timing on that, Kim?
So preliminary, because Mike Hebe and I have been attending meetings for several months now, and had another one even this afternoon. Preliminary, the numbers that we got were for 9 officers and 6 cruisers. And then they budgeted in an extra $10,000 to $15,000 because we're being told that the state is not going to probably allow us to use their storage capacity on the server. So you're talking on the high side, average $15,000 a year is the estimated number by our IT person and the vendor. Along with the cost, you're looking at $98,000, which is going to be presented as a CIP item. And possibly after that, $20,000 a year to maintain. And this is all part of the police accountability bill. The body cams and the dashboard cams have to be utilized by July 1, 2022. So Mike Heave and I were talking with the vendor to try and push off us having to put in that purchase order. Obviously if it's approved until the end of that fiscal year, and then get the purchase order paid upon delivery of the services from them, maybe into the next fiscal year if that helps, or do partial orders.
Of course, you have a shelf life also on these cameras, which what is it, 4 to 5 years?
Yeah, the warranty is 5 years. The storage capability right now, what we're being told, if it's a type of case that is not for court purposes, basically, and not of evidentiary value, you have to store for 90 days. If it is for evidentiary value and for court purposes, you're talking up to 4 years.
So it's an issue we're going to have to address.
Yeah, so that's an interesting point. So Kim, you said maybe $15,000, $20,000 a year for maintenance.
Yeah, that's what we were told. I talked to Tristan briefly when we were in a meeting with the Stafford Police Department as well. Their IT gentlemen have the same numbers. The woman from Telrepco is the company we use. She actually gave us the higher number of, estimated about $20,000. Like they said, possibly you may not use that money budgeted every year in year 2 or 3, but maybe year 4 you may need it for something. I could send you guys all the numbers that we've gotten so far to date.
Well, I guess I would just ask Mike and Brian, should some of that fall into this budget proposal so we can split it between this fiscal year and the 22-23 fiscal year? If we know it's coming, we may as well start planning for it. So
yeah,
I had Brian and Mike on that. I just don't know what the split is.
Do you guys want it as a CIP item or police budget?
Yeah, you mean the purchasing of the equipment, Tim?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah,
well,
so that'll...
I heard equipment's going to go in CIP, so I get that.
Yeah.
But I also heard that we're going to have to do some training and some maintenance and.
So the training of the use of the equipment and all that is part of the initial CIP request, which would be that $98,000. And that's all the equipment, that's all the training.
After that, we'll
everything.
see an increase on our IT budget of anywhere from 15 to 20,000 a year.
Correct.
Are there grants available for this?
Yeah, we got a name of one, and depending on what kind of funds are left, because this is statewide, obviously, we did get a name of someone we're going to look into that possibly could be up to 30%.
Okay.
So a 70-30 split. So we're definitely going to get on that.
Is Mike on, or is it just you, Brian?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, Mike, so what's your opinion as to...
Well, I don't think you can budget an operating expense for next year and this year because it's going to lapse at the end of the year anyway, so
Okay.
hard to do.
All right, so we'll look at that for CIP then, and then the
Yeah,
maintenance
but
budget.
certainly the capital costs could be looked
Okay,
at.
all right.
Any input, Hevie? Any?
Well, I guess the
No,
question on the table is that ninth officer, right, for the midnight shift.
Yeah, so it would be, I propose it would be 3 days a week. We could look at our statistics to see, obviously, everybody would think weekends, but that's not necessarily true, which I think we all saw with the amount of car breaks and stolen cars, not only in Summers, but statewide. But it would be 3 days a week, and you wouldn't have to worry about vacation or days off or anything like that. So
That's 32,448. No benefits.
How
right?
many hours a day is it?
for that part-time shift, 8 hours,
8 hours.
so 24 hours a week. And the other line items that would be affected on those were the shift differential, where they get the additional $2 an hour, like on evening shift, and the uniform maintenance, which is $3 a day, $3 per shift.
So the total cost would be...
Let's see, well, you have the 32.
And I have a question. This person would be avoiding additional overtime hours or other hours that are spent, or are there calls that justify having someone there? I mean, you have the statistics to support that.
For the midnight shift, Mike?
Yeah.
Oh, sure. I don't know if you. So I had the numbers
All
earlier.
you need is yes or no. You don't have to give me any.
I have. No, we have no union. We had 9,426 calls for service last year. 769 of those were between midnight and 7 a.m. Normally, the shifts, can start at 11 p.m. We just can't run the numbers that way as a whole for the year.
And who covers those calls now without someone there?
Currently, right now, Troop C troopers.
And you in charge for that?
No, that's just part of having a resident trooper program. That's part of our cost for our state police town.
So then the benefit is?
The benefit is for the people that live in this town to have, have a to start to try to fill that shift just like we do with days and eves. You have the calls for it.
Benefit would be timely response, right?
A timely response in those 3 days, absolutely. Unless they were at the barracks, maybe processing a prisoner. Other than that, they would be in Summers.
For a part-time person who ultimately will end up calling in Troop C, right?
Oh yeah, all the dispatch services still goes to Troop C, and Troop C would dispatch that person specifically, versus someone that could be in Ellington at the Vernon line.
I'm not
and
here
sending
doing
them.
this. I just want a little more analysis on it. That's all.
Oh yeah, sure.
So what were the midnight calls, let's say, in the last year besides, you mentioned the 700, so what were they the year before that,
I do not. I can get those numbers though.
I guess what she's saying, and we can do this additional analysis, Mike, is that the call numbers have increased on the midnight shift. And concurrent with that, I guess Troop C has not increased the amount of constables.
The minimal patrol for Troop C, without getting into numbers, has not changed in probably over 40 years.
Right. So you have an increase in calls on this particular midnight shift and limited staff in terms of support from the Troop C barracks. That's the way I understand it.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
So
I think we gain the intangible of the deterrent effect as well.
Well, that you can never quantify that. Correct. Absolutely.
Right.
Yep.
Good point.
So it's unfortunate. We've had a number of instances this past year, and whether or not they're increased, I don't know, because there's been a lot of social unrest, and obviously with the COVID pandemic, we've had increases in terms of domestic abuse, those kinds of things.
Domestic violence calls definitely went up.
Right.
And those are the type of calls you don't want somebody far away, if you can help it.
Right.
And like you said, it's not 7 days a week. It's a start to, for 3 days a week. And like you said, you can't quantify those calls when somebody sees somebody sitting out here at 190 and 83 at 3 a.m. where they might be getting ready to go up some of these, town roads to do some car breaks, which we've all had a lot of those.
We can, how do I say this? We can discuss some of the confidential information offline in terms of staffing, etc. And we can get some more detailed analysis, Mike, to satisfy your requirements. I have no problem with that. Any additional comments or questions for Kim? Mike, Hebe, are you here? Mike, are you on?
Yes, I am.
Any input from you?
No, I mean, Kim covered it. The big thing is just response time. Really, adding additional patrol would that greatly reduce response time, during the midnights. And I think that's a primary goal, especially where we're seeing the increase of car breaks and other things going on. Instead of relying on a trooper to come from a different town or farther away, having an officer in your own town to be able to respond would be a great benefit.
Excellent.
Okay. Alrighty, Kim. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ken.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for briefing.
I think the only other one is you guys, the selectmen budget. And
Want to put that up, Ryan?
Kim, did you send those out?
Yes,
Yes.
What?
you did.
Okay.
we got it.
Did I get it is the question. I can't share it on the screen if I didn't get it. I did not, so I can't share it on the screen.
Okay, there are a couple of items that I think jump out. The first one, of course, is the separation payout. Obviously, we authorized some transfer of funds the other day in regards to the separation payout for 3 employees that did leave. We have budgeted $10,000. At this stage of the game, we're not aware of anybody leaving, but I think in the past we've used that figure. Is that correct, Brian and Mike?
Yes.
For the separation payout?
For the last couple of years, we have been at the $10,000 number, but I mean, it's very easy to one person blows 10,000 out the water.
Right.
Your
We
only
do
your
have-
only risk is the time of the year that separation occurs. If it's early in the year,
Absolutely.
you have money in the salary line item to transfer, just like you did recently.
Yeah.
But if it's at the end of the year, then you would have.
Absolutely. To my knowledge, I don't have the list in front of me, but to my knowledge, I think we only have one person. No, we have 2 people currently eligible for retirement, and there's a couple more on their heels within the next couple of years. I know for sure if one of the 2 that is eligible for retirement retired, it would be in the range of $45,000 to $50,000.
Yeah. Well, obviously difficult to budget for that, but as in the past, we'll have to
Exactly.
authorize a transfer, as we've done
I mean,
last week.
we tried to budget like that in the past, and we're told by the Board of Finance that it was a placeholder.
Yeah, I agree.
So I would just rather keep it the way it is, and
Yeah, makes sense to me.
I think for the most part, the salary will cover it when the person leaves. So
Right, and if we have to go to a town meeting to appropriate the funds to cover it, then so be it.
So, Mike, when you're talking about salary covering it, you're assuming first it's not going to be replaced.
Well, usually when you're replacing, it's at a lower rate anyway, because that person has a lot of seniority, and that's why they're getting.
Right, that makes sense. Yeah, I get it. Okay, all right.
Or you have a break in time that they're being replaced. You know, when Chris Boucher left in September, you had from September until January where you weren't paying that position, and then you hired somebody who started in January, so you have that window as well.
Thank you.
Helps.
The next item, of course, are legal services, and I would recommend we take a hard look at that. We've already spent pretty much the total budget for the first 6 months of this year, and that has been primarily consumed with things like Hillsdale, zoning, Eastman, etc. And now we're involved in some of the legal aspects in terms of this exclusive developer agreement, which we're hammering out for the mills. So the question is, in my opinion, and it's open for discussion, that $40,000 number should be increased. Tim is recommending 55 to 60. I'm open for discussion on that.
I think Tim's 55 to 60 though included separating some to land use.
Correct.
Yeah, totally.
I don't know that we have the data yet to make an educated decision on what that number in the selectmen budget should be.
Okay.
It budgeted at 60, and again, it was from last year or the year before. But I agree, we need to. I think the only thing that should be in here are like your labor attorney and your town attorney.
I agree, Mike.
Yeah.
Well,
The rest of them are really land use and land specific. So
You might be you might be luckier in getting it past Board of Finance if it were split out, because it would be more easily understood
Yeah.
what you're paying for.
yeah, I think
It looks
that's
like
my point.
a group number. Yeah.
It's a good idea.
I have no problem with that. We can get that done relatively quickly. And
Yeah, I'll have everything for you next Thursday for sure.
Good enough. Thanks.
okay.
Yep.
The other item, of course,
And I
is.
think the last item.
Go ahead, Brian. I'm sorry.
No, I didn't realize you were looking at any more line items. I'm sorry. Go ahead. I was going to cut you off and send you elsewhere, but
Go ahead. Go ahead, Brian.
Good done.
no. Did you had other lines in the?
Yeah, I
slide?
just was going to mention the land and building services. That was primarily planometrics that Tim Keeney had referred to before. We're pretty much done with that. I think we'll be presenting the hopefully the final draft 5th or 6th, I can't remember.
What page is that on? Yeah.
That's under the 4th, the 5th line down.
Okay.
1, 2, 3, 4. The 5th line down on the first selectmen's budget.
I see. Okay, got it. Yeah.
So we're pretty much done with planometrics in terms of his expenses for the zoning regulations rewrite, which should be done, I think, the first week in February for presentation. So the other items are pretty much in line, unless you have additional comments or questions.
Yeah, one thing I do have a question on is the Memorial Day expenses. You've got $1,000, and I know this past year you gave $1,000 to the Legion, American Legion Post 101. Half of it for flags on Main, half of it for flags on cemetery graves, which was about 25 or 30% of their cost. So just to give you an idea, they'll probably be coming back next year asking for assistance as well.
That's fine. That's what it's for.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
Any additional comments on the first selectmen's portion of the budget?
I don't have any more.
Okay.
Nope. Thank you.
Thank you.
Brian, I think that's it, huh?
The only other thing is I sent all of you guys the town salary breakdown, and so you guys can begin kind of looking at and thinking about, what the values mean. At the very bottom, everything's totaled up, and it shows you what across the board 2%, 2.5%, and 3% mean to the budget. It's on all three of you to descend, or if you're going 3% or whatever, that's going to be a rolled in increase to the budget as well.
Yeah, we can discuss what the pool of money should be. I think we'll have that a collective decision, whether it's 2, 2.5, or 3%.
Yeah.
Any additional comments?
And then we can start rolling that into the budget. If there's other percentage fitting as well, they're very easy to calculate and throw on. Just
Alright.
So next week we have the library.
If you're thinking of anything up.
Brian, next week we have library, social services.
Library, senior center. Library, social services, and senior center.
And also we want to talk about the Veterans Affair, which I'll address at a later point.
I'll probably add IT to that as well.
I'm sorry, Kim. That's right, IT.
I'll probably have all my stuff ready by then. So,
and
just working on some stuff.
we may have the employee benefit numbers by then. Mike was going to email to see if we could get the quotes.
I contacted our consultant. He said he may have something next week for us. The state has been very slow to announce what the renewal rate increases might be.
Considering they just started in October, so
Yeah.
I don't think they're going to change much. So.
They'll be announcing it from home.
Right, but that's why I don't see it changing much because of the big pool that they have now.
Well,
so.
I don't know. It could possibly go down. You never know.
Yeah, which would be nice. That would be good.
One thing I wanted to mention, last week we had the long-range recovery and emergency planning presentation, and one of the items that was mentioned was the stress test concept for baseline for workers involved with emergency response, EMS, fire, and I thought it might be helpful to have someone like Paul Salva and Bill Meyer come in and talk about, just reiterate why that is important and how it might benefit the town. And I think it's important to consider it because I think it should be something that we need to look at for this year's fire department budget.
Yeah, I understand that this is a special Board of Selectmen meeting, so we are discussing the budget, but we can bring that up.
That's next week.
Next week. Yeah.
It might be something that we might want to consider.
Yeah, I agree. That's one of the points that I highlighted also. I think it's important. I think input from Dr. Salvo would be great.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good.
Any additional questions regarding the budget so far?
I don't have any.
Okay. Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
See you next
Thank
week.
Thank you, everybody.
All right.
Good night, everyone.
And
I don't know how to think about that. Your hands are so red.
Cold. Oh no, I got cold. I get cold.